Hi, good afternoon, everybody. We're just going to give it a few more seconds. I see a bunch of people still logging on, and we'll begin in a minute. Thank you. And if anyone is interested in closed captioning, please turn on or click on the CC button at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and that should get the closed captioning working for you. It's so nice to see everybody logging on. All right, so I'm going to begin. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. I am Mark Bogosian. I am the director of the Quality of Life Grants Program here at the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. And I would like to welcome you to this Quality of Life Applicant Technical Assistance webinar. So if you have any questions during, I please ask you to type them into the Q&A and not the chat, even though hopefully we'll be able to get to all of them. If I don't get to your question, just know that we will be capturing all of these questions along with any emails that you want to send after the webinar. So we ask you to submit those to no, that's our address. So the address to send emails to is qol@christopherreeve.org. And I'm going to show that email address on the next slide or so. What we're going to do is there's a deadline through Monday, February 7th to receive all of these emails. We're going to collect them, aggregate them, and put them in a Q&A document on our website. So if I don't get to your question today, it will be answered in the Q&A document, and that will be up shortly after that Monday the 7th, after we receive everything and respond to those. Before we do begin, I do just want to remind everybody that these grants are grants for nonprofit organizations. So under our federal cooperative agreement with the Department of Health and Human Services, Administration for Community Living, ACL, I'll refer to them a lot throughout this, we are not able to provide grants or, money or funds to individuals. And I'm going to give you a few different resources in a moment or two. So just nonprofit organizations are what we're able to fund, and those are organizations with a 501c3 tax status, municipal or state governments, school districts, colleges, universities, churches, recognized tribal entities, and other institutions such as community health centers or veterans hospitals. And I've also seen, in the pre-sign up that there were questions about help for individuals, and I'm going to ask that you please contact our information specialists, and they will give you individualized assistance and resources. And in about 2 more slides, I'll give you their information as well, so that you'll be able to contact them. So let me do this. This is the QOL email that we're asking you all to send your questions to, qol@christopherreeve.org. And here is the information for our information specialist team. And our information specialists, they provide worldwide resources and assistance. You can either call them, schedule a call, or submit a question through the website. And you can do this by, I'm going to read this to you. It's www.christopherreeve.org /get-support/ask-us-anything. And you can see that right up at the top of this screen over here. So ask us anything, give us a call. Our information specialists are here for you. Here we go. So today we are talking about expanded, oh, wrong button. We are talking about our direct effect grants program and our expanded impact grants program. And we are offering these two grant programs, and application deadline is March 9th, which is a Wednesday, at 11:59 p.m. The system will cut you off at that time. So just 1 minute before midnight, at the end of the day on Wednesday, March 9th. Grants that are awarded through this 2022 first cycle will begin on June 1st, 2022. So closing dates will be talked about in the webinar. There are varying closing dates for different grants. And as many of you know, we are not able to provide pre-award assistance, individualized pre-award assistance, either by telephone or email. But that's why these webinars are here, and the FAQs, where we can answer questions more broadly and put that information up. And if you need any technical assistance throughout the webinar, I mean, not only the webinar, but throughout the grants process, please email qol@christopherreeve.org. And what I really want to focus on in this webinar, because a lot of this information is provided in the program and application guidelines that we put out every cycle. I really want to focus on funding restrictions, especially what is considered gifts to individuals. That's something that trips a lot of people up. I want to talk about eligibility and just information on budget specifics, because that's another area where people often get a little tripped up. Just so you know, in the application guidelines, we've also added a scoring rubric and a copy of the application review from what the external reviewers are going to be using when they're reviewing and scoring your applications. And this just gives you a better understanding of how your applications are evaluated. And again, you'll find those in the guidelines and on our website. And I really can't encourage you enough to take a look at these resources. And I'll mention a few more in a bit, just because they're really helpful in knowing what to expect throughout the process. And if you were to be awarded, there are sample grant reports, interim reports, final reports, and just, again, other very helpful information. And if I have time today, I will talk about how the grants are selected, just because I think that's helpful to know too, just the entire process. If I don't get to it, we do have a page on our website that really goes into great detail about that. All right, so a quick overview is just really looking at some general information about the Reeve Foundation, all of our programs. We'll spend a good amount of time going over things like, eligibility, funding restrictions, allowable expenses. I'll be giving a few examples of each grant opportunity, and I'll also be showing you all how to get onto our online grants portal. And then we'll kind of wrap things up, just going over the application. And then again, hopefully, if there's time, the review process and how awards are made, and what's expected if you are awarded in terms of grantee requirements. So if you haven't figured, I'm working from two screens, so I'm going back and forth a little here, trying to get this straightened out here. All right. So I just want to give a brief history of the foundation. So the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation's roots stretch back to 1982, when a New Jersey high school student named Henry Stiefel, who is on our board, was involved in a car accident that left him paralyzed at age 17. What started as the community-driven Stiefel Paralysis Research Foundation soon became the American Paralysis Association, the APA. And then in 1995, when the actor Christopher Reeve was injured, the APA was really one of the first places that he and his wife, Dana, turned to. By 1999, the APA became the Christopher Reeve Foundation, and Dana's name was added after her untimely passing in 2006. So what's important to know is that we are paralysis focused, and that all of our grants must be targeted to projects that will serve individuals living with paralysis, as well as their families and caregivers. So we do have some respite and caregiving programs also aimed at them. We use a functional definition of paralysis, which is the difficulty and or inability to use arms and or legs due to neurological conditions. And there's a whole host of these, including but not limited to spinal cord injury, traumatic brain injury, stroke, cerebral palsy, spina bifida, ALS, post-polio syndrome, and as I said, a whole list of others. And while we will consider supporting programs that include people that have co-occurring disabilities, as well as inclusive community projects, the proposed projects must serve a majority of people living with paralysis. And then we also say that at least 3 people living with paralysis, as defined on this slide, must also be served through these grant programs, or their caregivers or family members. So the Christopher and Dana Reeve National Paralysis Resource Center has been federally funded since 2014 through a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the Administration for Community Living, ACL. And the National PRC provides deeply needed information, programs, and individualized support and assistance to the over 5.3 million Americans living with paralysis. So the foundation of the National PRC are our information specialists. And I talked a little bit about them earlier. And these are the folks who provide one-on-one assistance, and they have provided assistance to over 106,000 families in 170 languages. We also have a military and veterans program, which supports the unique needs of our servicemen and women. We have a peer and family support program with over 450 certified peer mentors, and they have provided support to over 12,000 people. We have a very robust virtual community with over 3 million users who visit either our website or Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and our other social media outlets such as YouTube. And part of all of this within the National PRC are the quality of life grants. And these also are funded through our cooperative agreement with ACL. And just want to add that, as of this past cycle, we've funded over $36 million worth of grants to about 3,490 projects across the United States and the territories. And that's since the inception of this program that we began back in 1999. And then just lastly, the National PRC provides free and health-related resources and materials. And I'll show you what some of those just look like. Now, all of these resources are free, including our flagship publication, the Paralysis Resource Guide. We have wallet cards on sepsis, deep vein thrombosis, and other secondary conditions. There are publications on bladder and bowel management, pressure injuries, and even advocating for the rights of children living with paralysis. And we invite you to reach out to us for any and all of these materials that are on our website, either for your organizations or even, for people you serve as well. So please we're very happy to mail out huge boxes of these materials. They're very important and needed throughout the community. Now, the Quality of Life Grants program, is, as I mentioned, we are federally funded through a cooperative agreement with ACL, and we are not allowed to make grants to individuals or to organizations that provide funding to an other organization. So that would be looked at as a pass-through organization. But I'm going to talk a little bit about gifts to individuals in a few more slides. But I just wanted to just reiterate that fact. So before you begin your application, I really recommend that you read our application and program guidelines. And this provides information about the QOL grants program, funding and program tier descriptions. We also have eligibility criteria, which you will also be asked in your application. There are funding restrictions, allowable expenses, and just even it goes into application questions. So all of these are available on our website. And I also ask you to visit our website, to look at our overview of the QOL grants program, as well as the QOL grant application process page. There's a lot of good information on there. And I know it's a lot to read, but I just feel that the information in these documents and on the webpage will really help you to familiarize yourself with the process to make it easier for you, and also to better prepare the required information that's requested in the applications. Also available on our website, which I really need to address, is our People First language guide. And these are guidelines for discussing people with disabilities. And we here at the Reeve Foundation believe that language is very important, and speaking about people with respect and dignity is of the utmost importance. And so there are some guidelines that are included here in that guide. And I would also suggest that you take a look at our quick guide to establishing evaluation indicators. And the reason why I highly suggest that is because the grant application requires you to describe evaluation indicators that you would use to measure the success of your project. And these indicators must be a combination of both input and output indicators, and they must be measurable. So you'll also be asked to describe, the kinds of evaluation methods that you use, such as, surveys or interviews, focus groups, or review of program documentation. So it really is a great idea to get an understanding of what is going to be asked of you on the application. And here's a quick outline of the cycle. Today's the webinar. The questions are due on the 7th. We then are looking at a proposal deadline of March 9th, again at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time, and the system will shut off at that point, so no exceptions will be allowed by the system past that deadline. We're then going to be reviewing these applications in 2 separate review teams from March 15th through May 8th. So there's a really long period of review, a very intense period, and then grants are going to be awarded at the end of May, with the grant cycles beginning on June 1st. So to talk a little bit about eligibility, I mentioned this up front. Applications are accepted from 501c3 nonprofit organizations, municipalities, school districts, colleges and universities, recognized tribal entities, and as I said earlier too, community health centers and veterans hospitals. So the important thing to know is that organization must have its own 501c3 tax status, or be part of a chapter or a national organization that is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Fiscal sponsors are not allowed to apply on behalf of a non-501c3 organization. And also something that recently has been happening is, 501c4 organizations, those that are allowed to lobby, et cetera, if they are not eligible if they do not have their own 501c3 status. So we're not able to fund a 501c4. I want to speak a little bit about a new eligibility requirement, and this somehow gets a little complicated, but if you have any questions, please email me at qol@christopherreeve.org about this. So I just want to make sure that everybody kind of understands this. So previously, the waiting period for reapplying after you've received funding, a grant, is 1 year after your grant has closed. Now, if you've applied and have been declined a grant, you can reapply anytime you want. This new cooperative agreement that we're under with the Administration for Community Living is, we're really working with them to create a level playing field and just provide opportunities for all organizations to apply for funding. So we've instituted a new waiting period of 5 years, but there's a few caveats here. So that is only within the same category. So any other category or tier, you would still need to wait the 1 year from the close of your previous grant, but you then need to wait 5 years to apply in the same tier or category. And let me give you a few examples of this, right? So let's say, we have 5 tiers available funding twice a year. And let's say that your organization received a tier 1 adaptive sports grant this cycle. After this grant closed out, within 1 year after that, you would then be able to reapply for a different tier. You could apply for a respite program or nursing home transition or the transportation, but you would not be able to apply for an adaptive sports tier 1 grant for a period of 5 years. If, let's say, your organization had been, had shown very successful outcomes and you felt that a tier 5 expanded impact grant was something that you wanted to apply for under that category, that's allowable because it's a different tier. So it's just really funding within the same tier and the same program focus, because we want to make sure that there's everybody has an opportunity and a chance to benefit from receiving grant funds. Another thing I just want to quickly say, I think I talked about this in another slide coming up, but we receive about 300 to 400 applications per cycle and award maybe 40 to 50, 60 at most. And so if your organization is not funded, we really do encourage you to reapply. There have been many organizations that have received a grant, on the 2nd or 3rd or even the 4th application. So please, at times with it's about 24% or so, we're 400 and maybe then, doing 50 out of the 400. So just, realize that at times the competition is very, very strong, and but just to please keep applying, because there are many times where, sometimes you're awarded on your first try, and then sometimes it could be the 3rd or 4th. So again, I just really want to encourage everybody to continue to, if you're not funded, to just keep reapplying. Not really. Let's see. All right, so here's where we talk a little bit about funding restrictions. And so in accordance with our federal cooperative agreement, we are prohibited from funding the following. Now, there's going to be a bunch of slides here, but I do hope that you'll really kind of take this in, because these are sometimes the places where people's applications get denied. So no grants can be directly made to individuals, but also none of the funding can be given directly to an individual. Now, this includes expenses that would be seen as a gift to an individual. And I've given some examples here, but I do want to read them, such as like a ready bag for disaster preparedness, or T-shirts for a camp, jerseys, uniforms, trophies, a home modification or an individual vehicle modification, anything that would be given to somebody that they would then take and own and have property of. Two things that I want to talk about that are a little interesting, especially while we're in this virtual world, would be supplies and materials. So supplies, let's say for a virtual camp for kids, or workshop, let's say crayons or art supplies, or even exercise bands, or again anything that could be given to somebody that they could physically keep, those are not allowed. Internet service would also be something that would be considered a gift, but in a little bit I'm going to talk about potential ways to provide internet service through loan closets, or through devices that are loaned. Gift cards for participants, an Amazon membership for a movie night, or book club, or an app on your phone that needs to be paid, the subscription. So anything that really would be considered by the government as a gift to an individual. Now, and I know it's really tricky, especially during the pandemic, because if let's say a child were at an event and there was construction paper and glue and scissors and on site, and they made the project on site, they'd probably leave and go home with, I don't know, like let's say a paper airplane or some other finished product. And that would not be considered a gift. But if they went home with the scissors and the bottle of glue and all of the leftover construction paper, that would be considered a gift. So that's why it gets really a little tricky in this virtual world, because, obviously in a situation like this, children would need supplies to do the project. And, the only way to get around sending them supplies is to have it be considered a loan. And now that's a lot easier, right, to do with like iPads. An organization would loan out 10 iPads to 10 children for a 12-week project and then collect them at the end of the 12 weeks, right? And then the organization has them for future offerings, future programs, and no one then owns their own iPad. But when it comes down to supplies, right, it gets a little bit trickier, because, how do you navigate that? You really can't loan out paintbrushes or even books. So unfortunately, in this virtual world, we need to be looking at supplies in that way too. Paintbrushes at a non-virtual event that let's say the kids would use, and then they're there, those would not be gifts. Other things, funding restrictions, for-profit companies, and that really includes, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, organizations acting as a fiscal sponsor for a nonprofit company, or an organization that does not have its own 501c3 tax determination status. We're also unable, because these are federal funds, unable to fund projects that are based outside of the US, or projects that use contractors or vendors that are outside of the US. Everything has to stay within the United States of America. Okay, here's a big one. Research. We are under no, that's not even a proper grammar, right? We are not allowed under any circumstances to fund research. So that is another one of the funding restrictions through our cooperative agreement. Also, rehabilitative therapy. Now, there's a lot of questions about this, so I want to kind of go into this a little bit. We can fund programs that assist people living with paralysis to participate in exercise opportunities. those are allowable. But programs that use a physical therapist or an occupational therapist to work directly with the person with paralysis, that is considered a part of rehabilitative therapy. But exercise opportunities that are facilitated by someone who, let's say, for example, has a bachelor's degree in exercise science, or who is a certified fitness trainer or instructor, that would be allowable. So again, rehabilitative therapy, anything that has to do with a physical therapist or occupational therapist or any form of medical setting. When we get into equipment, I'll talk a little bit about that too. Okay, so equipment. There's a few things to talk about in terms of equipment. Equipment is not allowed. However, here are some of the places where they are. So if it's considered a part of a loan closet, it's allowed. Otherwise, again, the equipment would be provided to individuals, and that would be considered a gift. Requests for loan closets must include a specified period of time. Like a device loan is typically 4 to 6 weeks. Sometimes it could be up to 9 weeks, which would be 3 months. That is in the very, extreme cases. And that would enable an individual to try out and familiarize themselves with, let's say it's a piece of assistive technology or a piece of durable medical equipment, before they then would acquire it on their own. So must be a very specific piece of time. Open-ended and long-term loan closets will not be considered. And this will also apply to ramps. I'll talk a little bit about ramps a little later too. Earlier, I mentioned internet service, and I said there were a few ways to kind of, how we could provide internet service, and we could do that through a loan closet of either, let's say, a hotspot device or a tablet that has the internet service included, because then the organization would be receiving those devices back, and therefore it would not be a gift to an individual. Two other ways that equipment is allowable. If it provides access and or promotes independence. So let me give you a couple examples, and they're here. So I'm just kind of be reading this, but like adaptive strollers that are used as part of a program that are not given out to the individuals, that's allowable. That means that they would remain on site. Yeah, same with like a wheelchair basketball for basketball team. They don't go home with the players. They remain on the premises. A transfer chair at a community pool or a stair lift. Interesting, we've been seeing a lot of these, and we've been funding projects like this with examination tables or gynecological examination tables for rural areas where there's no such equipment that's available in that region. That provides access. When we look at promoting independence, a piece of equipment could be a scale for a community health center. Knowing your weight promotes independence. It allows people to remain healthy. As we all know, being overweight can lead to a myriad of chronic health conditions. Other things that would promote independence, beach wheelchairs or adaptive bikes at a community park, or I mentioned sports wheelchairs for a community sports team. Those are also, yes, providing access, but one could look at them under the lens of providing independence or promoting independence. Here's the gym equipment that I wanted to talk about. So gym equipment that's providing access is allowable. However, not gym equipment that you have to have either a physical therapist or a medical type personnel person kind of guiding you through the process, or any use in therapy. That's not allowable. But a piece of a gym equipment where there is a specialized trainer, those pieces of equipment are allowable, both providing access and promoting independence. This question came in a little earlier too. So we cannot fund the development of prototypes for inventions or equipments, or other research and developmental activities that include intellectual property rights. So we wouldn't be able to fund the development of an app, or again, anything that really involves intellectual property rights. Construction, this is a big area. I think I have another slide after this too on construction. So we can't fund construction, but funds can be used to support, simple accessibility modifications, to existing structures, like a playground or a trail or, other things like that. Requested funds for an accessible bathroom, that's allowable. It's allowable if the bathroom is already existing, and that these expenses to make it accessible would, let's say, be a grab bar or accessible toilets and sinks. What we wouldn't be able to fund is the building of a new bathroom or the construction of a major renovation of an existing bathroom. So it's just those kind of very simple accessibility modifications. I think I mentioned lifts a little earlier. If you're requesting funds for an accessible lift or an elevator, that would be allowable under equipment that provides access and independence and provides access and promotes independence. And what we wouldn't be able to fund, though, would be the excavation or the construction of an elevator or shaft, as that would be considered major construction. So if you think about like just lifts and elevators as being simple plug-in devices that help people get up a few stairs or from one floor to the other, it's not a major modifications, like the construction of an elevator shaft. I do want to talk about new playgrounds, just really important. As we were saying with the others, it's the modification of something that already exists, and modifications or minor relocations of older non-accessible playgrounds or parks is allowable, but we cannot fund any playgrounds that would be entirely new. So let me give you an example here. So we see a lot of applications for fully accessible playgrounds in a school district or a town that currently has no inclusive or accessible playground options for children living with paralysis. So the school comes to us with a proposal and they say they're completely renovating the non-accessible playground to make it fully accessible and inclusive. Now, because they're replacing the older playground, we can fund that. We can fund things such as the, pour-in surface, pour-in-place surfacing, or any of the inclusive playground structures, the merry-go-round, the zip drive. But if this school, let's say, did not have an older playground and would be installing a brand new playground for the first time on the property, then we wouldn't be able to fund that. That would also be considered major construction. If it's like a minor relocation, it's on the same property, we're just moving the playground from here to here for better accessibility, that's allowable. But not if there's a change of address, we're moving it, somewhere else in town, down the street, that would not be considered a, renovation of the existing playground. And this is the last page of funding restrictions, but I just really feel a lot of this is very important because these are the things that a lot of times disqualify folks. So again, projects must, that do not serve at least 3 people living with paralysis. If it's under 3, your proposal would not be funded. We cannot fund fundraising events or a paid fundraiser positions in anything that has to do with lobbying or efforts to influence legislation. we can fund things such as community awareness campaigns or education campaigns, but anything that would kind of be geared or targeted to changing legislation or influencing lawmaking is strictly prohibited. Also the timeline there, 12 months for direct effect. Expanded impact is actually 24. And again, one thing that we always see is we're not allowed to fund food in any way, and that's any kind of meal, any kind of snack, per diem, a lunch, dinner, or beverage, definitely no alcohol. And the one thing that we see a lot is water, and we just cannot fund any kind of food or beverage, as that is seen as a gift to an individual. All right, so now you're wondering, what can we fund? And there's a whole lot, and I think you'll be really surprised at the different types of projects, the different kinds of categories that we do fund. We fund a wide range of programmatic expenses, and I'll cover those when we really talk mostly about the direct effect descriptions and the types of projects. But we can support programmatic personnel, consultants, contract workers, entry fees, transportation costs, facility, rental, travel reimbursements, marketing. We can, fund equipment. And again, just keep in mind the restrictions that we just talked about. We can also fund scholarships if it's for the organization offering the sessions where it's not money going to the individual. So here's a $300 for therapeutic horseback riding. Now it's more the organization now, because of the funds, will allow you to have however many hours of therapeutic horseback riding. So no money ever transfers hands. Some travel allowances that are up here also on our website. And then just lastly, we are able to fund administrative or indirect costs. We do have a de minimis indirect cost rate, which is 10%. And however, if your organization has a federally a negotiated federal indirect cost rate agreement, which is a NICRA, you can include that indirect cost rate that has been federally negotiated. But we do ask that you update a copy, or you do upload a copy of your current NICRA, and that would be required if your grant were to be approved for funding. Now, when it comes to budget specificity and vendor quotes, we really need you to be specific in your funding requests. Now, for example, let's say you're requesting funds for equipment for a loan closet. We need you to be specific in terms of indicating what the pieces of equipment are that you're budgeting. So for example, let's say you're going to purchase 4 eye gaze devices at $4,000 per device for a total of $16,000. That's what we need to see in the budget. Or if you're, let's say, applying for part of a program operation, let's say travel even, 4 trips to an assistive technology demonstration center at 532 miles at 56 cents per mile would total $305. So that kind of specificity we need to see. We please do not, numerous applications have not been made it on through the review process if you are asking for a blanket $25,000 for an equipment line with no detail. And we see that a lot of times where somebody will say playground equipment, $25,000. But we don't know what playground equipment that is. You need to very clearly say this is for the We Go Round, this is for the zip line, or have it specific. We also ask, and this is also really important, is that you supply a vendor quote. Vendor quotes must be current at the time of the application process, and we really strongly recommend them for all equipment and services and contractors. If you're purchasing equipment from, let's say, a website like Amazon, just take a screenshot and send that in as well. But it really helps the external reviewers as they, somebody says, oh, we want to purchase a monoski. Well, they don't know how much a monoski costs. So is your 9,000 an appropriate request? Is it too much? Is it too little? Is it, so by having a vendor quote, this really helps move the process along. I'm not going to talk about this just because, we're offering right now direct effect and expanded impact. And then in the fall, we will be doing the priority impact. All of this information is on our website. I want to go through just different types of, projects that we fund. We, accessibility modifications, adaptive sports. We've talked about things like that. Advocacy, arts, camp, caregiving, fitness and health, media development, therapeutic horseback riding. Interesting. Somebody asked earlier today, is therapeutic horseback riding rehabilitative therapy? And the response is no. It is not a physical, a physical therapist or an OT that is doing the training. These are usually, individuals with a different training, and it's not in a medical center, and it's, and it's also just a very different type of learning about balance, wholeness, communicating with animals, etc. I mean, there's a whole range of activities that go around with it. So these are different types of programs. And this next slide shows types of projects. I've mentioned these a few times: sports wheelchairs for a wheelchair basketball team, kayak for a rowing program, things that we're seeing a lot. And I know that the reviewers are very excited about, these new types of grants that are coming in, or applications that are coming in. Let's say for a workshop, an education series on sex and sexuality with a spinal cord injury, or a program for preventing abuse in adaptive sports. So they're really looking for these new types of programs that are going outside of the the traditional direct effect, which are really, really important. I mentioned transportation, and again, support groups, peer mentoring programs. So I hope that you will see that there's a lot of different types of funding that we can offer through this program. And then tier 5, just quickly, is that these grants are for previously awarded grants. So it could be a direct effect, a priority impact, one of our assistive technology grants. So it's a previous grantee who has, that's in good standing with the foundation, meaning, we've received your reports, everything has been closed out. You've also shown some successful and demonstrated impact. So that's really what this is about. It's all about expansion and replication of these programs on a larger scale. So, taking a program from, let's say it was a city initiative, and now you're looking at a state initiative or a regional initiative, or moving a program that was working in a few states, moving it to have national impact. Those are the types of programs that are funded under this tier 5. And, people ask, what are they? And again, this is really a replication and implementation of your programs into new and additional settings, so larger local or larger national levels. One of the things you're going to be asked on the application is you're going to be asked, what was the previous funded project, the year, the amount awarded, the type. The project type, was it adaptive sports or a respite caregiving program? You're going to have to talk about the previously funded project achievements, also uploading your last final report so that we can verify both of those. You know, a description of how the new project will expand upon what you've already done. And again, we're really looking at organizations that we've funded in the past that have had demonstrated and achievable, successful impact that they've achieved. So again, really taking everything to scale or full scale or a larger scale. And we are really expecting it, $100,000 for each grant, that, these project goals are going to have sizable and significant impact. And we really do recommend that you request the full amount, the full 100, and take the 2 years to really implement these programs to make them as successful as possible. I know that we're kind of running a little behind, so I'm going to go through some of this fast, but just really important is, you need to complete the online application through our online grants portal. But I'm going to ask, please make sure that you add QOL@ChristopherReeve.org and administrator@grantinterface.com to your acceptable email addresses. And that's going to avoid you from not getting communication from us, through a spam blocker or whatever, especially the administrator@grantinterface.com. Those emails are coming directly from the system telling you we've either received your your application, we have questions about your application, or the status of your application. So please make sure that those are on here, on your list to receive email. And let's talk about accessing the grants portal. So, after you click on that, the link to the grant portal, you're going to be brought to this logon page. And this is the first time you're filling out a new account. Just, click on the create new account button. You're going to be asked for contact information and information about your organization. If you need assistance, there's a link on this page to a tutorial video. And you can always just ask us questions at QOL@ChristopherReeve.org. Now, if you've applied in the past, and this is really important, just enter your email address and the password that you previously created. And if you've forgotten it, click on the I forgot my password link there, and an email will be sent to you with your password. And if you don't remember or have access to that email account, people leave, organization positions change, contact us at QOL@ChristopherReeve.org. And it's really, really important that you enter an email address and a password that's already connected to the account, because in creating a duplicate, you're going to lose all of the history. So all of the organization's application history is connected to your grant profile. So you do not want to lose that information. And please be sure to review all of the organization and contact information in the online system and update them with your most current information. Now, once you've created a new account or you've logged on, you're going to be brought to this apply page. See the little blue buttons over there on the right-hand side. Click apply, and then you will be brought to each page. Let's see what that looks like here. I've clicked on, let's say, the direct effect, and I am now here on the direct effect page. I am now going to apply. And that's going to bring me to the application process page. So you can print out the questions in advance. There's a little button up here in the right-hand corner that says question list. Print that out. It'll show up as a Word document, and the applications are these questions are also available in the grant application and program guidelines. The list of application questions that we'll take a look at in a second too also list paragraph counts and text limits, for the fields. A lot of people find it helpful to just, print this out, the Word document, do everything on the Word document, and then cut and paste your answers into the online application. They just find that a whole lot easier. And then you can see the different fields that are broken down. There's the eligibility quiz, there's a proposal description, budget information, organizational information, and then supporting documents that we think would be helpful for you to share. Once you've answered all of the questions and uploaded all of the required documents, you're going to hit that blue submit button at the bottom lower right hand corner. And also at any time you can save your application and come back to it at any time by hitting that save application budget at the bottom. And I want to talk quickly about the budget because I see we're almost coming on time. I think we're scheduled to about 4:15. So, we've revised the project budget template. And so this template is downloadable right from the application. So please use that document. Any applications that are using older versions may be eliminated. Please make sure that you use the ones that are provided in the link. Just starting at the top of the budget, you're going to see that we're going to ask you to fill out your organization and project name, as well as a total budget amount and the amount requested from the foundation. And as you fill this out, all you have to do is type in, the budget line item, the total cost of the line item, and the requested amount. So those are three things, and I'm going to show you that in a sample in a minute. One thing to know is that subtotal and total costs are going to formulate automatically. So please do not try to alter any of the formulas on this spreadsheet. Now the budget is broken down into 4 different categories. And let me show you what that looks like. So you can see from that first page, it was personnel costs and equipment. And now we're looking at supplies, travels, and other costs. And again, this under other costs, that's where you would put the indirect cost, which is that de minimis 10%, or the federally negotiated indirect cost rate amount. I want to show you what the bottom of this template looks like. So you're asked to fill out other sources of funding and note if it's pending or committed. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the example. And then you'll see just down here at the bottom, the subtotal costs for each budget area are going to formulate in this bottom section of the template. So this way, the total funds at this bottom will mirror everything that's up at the top, but just on the big, broad subtotal lines. So here's an example of a budget that we've created just to kind of show you. This organization is requesting $24,750 out of a total budget of $465,000. So we're not asking you to put the entire project budget on here. Only the pieces that you are requesting from us should be listed. So you'll see that this person has listed personnel, equipment, and other costs. They've listed the total cost of each line and then what they're requesting from us. So in some cases they don't match up. One might be, $15,000 for the zip track, but they're only requesting $5,000 of that. Another thing is that the total listed cost of each line item, and then what they're requesting, all of that is going to formulate. So the total cost though is going to equal 41,613, and then the project of the funds that they're requesting are going to total 24,750. On the next page, we'll take a look at that other information that's equally as important. So here you're going to see with the other sources of funding. So we know from the top that this person proposed a total budget for the entire project of $465,000. We see that the organization has most of this funding committed. So we know that the project, if it were to be awarded, that the foundation's grant would, most likely not only be implemented, but it would obviously have impact. What we feel that the lesson for this is that the reviewers look at this, right? They want to make sure that their decisions are based on the risk of a project not being implemented, or being able for the whole project to be carried out to its fruition. So now, like, let's say if the remainder of this budget was pending and they didn't receive that funding, then the 24,750 that they're requesting from us, well, that wouldn't ensure that the project would be able to move forward. So it's likely in that case that the project wouldn't be recommended for funding. They just want to make sure that they're doing good stewardship of the federal funds that we've been that we're shepherding. So quickly to the application budget narrative. This is equally as important. The budget narrative must include a description and justification of each budget category, that is the line items in your proposed budget. Please do not list anything on this narrative that you're not requesting funded for. And we really ask that all expenses on the budget template should clearly match the items listed on the narrative, right? So it should help us better understand what the grant funds are being used for, and so it's a further explanation of that one-line budget, and then you're able to give us more information so we can better understand why you need that person, that you're, the project director, what the project director is going to do, or, how the piece of equipment is going to be used. Very important to have that information. There's a copy of this narrative template that's downloadable straight from the application, and please use the one that is there and not one of your own design. So once you, and I think I mentioned this, obviously you can save the application at any time using the save application, but once you've completed everything, you've responded to the questions, you've uploaded the required documents, you just simply hit the submit application budget. Once you've done that, a submission confirmation page is going to appear, and the system will also send you an email indicating that your application has been received. So again, please be sure that your email address has been correctly entered. There's been a number of times where people aren't getting things because they typed in their email address incorrectly. And also, again, please make sure that administrator@grantinterface.com is added to your safe lists. That way you'll be able to receive all the emails coming from this account. And I just hit the wrong button over here. So let me scroll back to where I am. I'm not, just because of time, going to talk about the review process. We do have this listed, and I know you're not even seeing this. Oh, you are seeing that screen. I'm looking at a different screen right now. But the review process, we do have this fully outlined on our website. And I just think it's very helpful to know, how what the external reviewers are looking at, how they score, how the scores are compiled, how that information is given to an internal review committee that consists of board members and staff from different departments that have expertise in these areas. So it's a very long and intensive process, and please do look at that on our website, because I do want to get to some questions. Award notifications, we let everybody know if either you have been approved or declined, and this will all be emailed to you. Once if you are awarded an application, you're going to receive an email with an intent to accept form. And there's a whole process with that after the intent to accept form. And you've said yes, you're looking to accept the grant, then we would issue a grant award letter that must be countersigned. Once that's returned, then a grant payment will go out. So there's a little bit of a process in there. And, we love to try to get that turned around quickly so that, you can have your funds available. This is all on the website as well, but there's a interim report at 6 months and a final report at 13 months, and that's for the direct effect grants. And for the expanded impact grants, it's a 24-month period. So we're looking at an update or check-in at 6 months, an interim report at 12, another update or check-in at 18 months, and then a final report at 25 months. Throughout this whole process, though, we're really involved with everybody, either, hopefully doing site visits, something that we really love to do when we're not in the middle of a pandemic. So, we try to be in touch with our grantees all the time. And let's see what is next here, right? Site visit evaluation. We do evaluations of the program at the end as well through Vanderbilt University. We always want your feedback so that we can better and improve this, this process, the grants program. And that's why really these evaluations are very important, and they are part of the final, the grant report. Again, I don't want to say we don't see them, but we're not looking at them and judging. We're looking at them to learn. We want to learn what your experience was, how the process was, how we can always work to improve this. And I did mention this at the the very beginning. In adherence with our federal cooperative agreement, we really are not able to comment on denied applications or provide any kind of programmatic direction. This is seen as providing an unfair advantage to other applicants. So I know that a lot of times people are looking to get some input on why their grant was not awarded, and unfortunately we are not able to comment on that process either. So I know we are really cutting it close. I want to say thank you, and we really do look forward to your submissions. I'm going to see now if I can get to your questions. Again, I'm on the two screens here, so let me see if I can. Okay. So. And I'm sorry, sometimes it takes so long to read these questions, so I apologize. And then, as I said, if we don't get to these, we will definitely have them included in the FAQ document at the end of at the end of this little process. So they should be up shortly after February 7th. And a lot of these are so very specific. Okay, so somebody's asking if we partner with a municipality when requesting equipment that will be put in a park, and they're asking if they need an MOU with the municipality. So the interesting thing there is that it would really be better suited if the grant request was coming from the municipality, because if you are partnering with them, then it would be considered a pass-through grant. The funds need to be going to the municipality to do the work, which is the land that they care for. Any kind of partnership, you would not therefore have control over the equipment or whatever would be going into the park, and no oversight. So that would not actually be allowable. Somebody asked if a tier 5 has to be based on a smaller funded Reeve project. Could it follow on a smaller but highly successful project not funded by Reeve? And unfortunately, no. That these projects must be funded by, the previous project must be funded by Reeve. I had actually thought the question was going to be if it was a smaller project, not just, let's say, a $25,000 direct effect or a $50,000 employment grant. Let's say it was a $12,000 direct effect grant that really, for the $12,000 showed major impact and was incredibly successful. That, would be, certainly considered. So somebody asked if door openers and ramps to make buildings accessible would be allowable. Yes, anything that would make a building accessible. So a ramp, I started to, I think, talk a little bit about, loaner ramps, those being part of a loan closet. Again, that wouldn't be gifts to individuals, but in a case like this, let's say you're a community center and you needed a physical ramp, that would be allowable because it would be considered making the building accessible. So yes, door openers, ramps, any kind of facility modification that would make, let's call it a community building, more accessible. Somebody asked this earlier today too. Interesting. So they're asking about equipment used in an adaptive open gym setting, where the client works out on the equipment without supervision, but the clinic also employs physical therapists. That would be allowable if the physical therapists were not involved. So if the client has access and is able to use the equipment through his or her own routine, that piece of equipment would be allowable. Sorry, it's so hard reading these sometimes. Oh, this is great. Can an organization request funds for multiple projects? For example, an accessible toilet and adaptive strollers, as long as the total cost is less than 25,000 or equal to 25,000. And yes, it certainly would be. So you can do multiple projects within the grant. And I think you all hear my phone ringing. I don't know how to turn that off. So somebody asked about service dogs when the ownership is transferred to the recipient. Very interesting question. So, a lot of what we fund when we do fund service animal projects would be the, let's say, if it were early care, veterinary expenses, training the dogs. We'll do a lot of training programs. We've done training programs with prisons. We've done training programs where it's about really training the dog, teaching the dog. So that aspect of it then isn't where then the dog is what has been purchased or funded and then is given, and that would be seen as a gift to an individual. Sometimes for the service animal, it is really mostly training, but other times it could be part of a facility modification, tables where people would be able to roll in on their wheelchairs and have access to the animal on a table as well. So, there are ways to think about that. Good. This is a great question. Somebody asked for allowable equipment. Would you consider partial funding of an item? And yes. So, I think in the example I gave earlier, somebody was asking about the example showed, let's say, an $11,000 adaptive sports wheelchair, and they're asking for 5,000 of it. We do that. So it doesn't have to be the full amount, but as long as also in the narrative you would explain, where the other funds are coming from, how you're able to, purchase that, then we'd know that the $5,000 would be being used towards that piece of equipment. Somebody is asking, can a tier 5, this would be expansion grant, be adding a new component to accessible program? For example, expanding a loan closet that wants to add an educational component to better support caretakers using equipment. And yes, so if the original project was funding the loan closet, and this is to expand upon the services that you offer through that loan closet with these types of an educational component, absolutely. Some of these are very long to read, so it's hard to kind of all right, sorry, I'm also just looking at the time. I do see that we are really at time. There's a number of questions in here that we're not able to get to. What we will do is I said we will collect these and really kind of aggregate them, put them in categories and kind of sub areas, just so that everybody can see what the answers are. If you have any questions, going forward, and prior to February 7th, and you want those to be included in the QOL document, in the FAQ document, please email us at QOL@ChristopherReeve.org. And I want to thank all of you. I see we're just going a little bit over time, and I want to thank all of you for joining us. And we're really here to serve you and hopefully make this a successful process for all of you as well. Thank you for your interest, and thank you all for the work that you do. It's incredibly important, and we're honored to be able to work with you and partner with you through this. So thank you, and I think they've taught me how to turn this off, so we'll see. Again, thank you and bye.